So yesterday we had an interesting discussion in the Patreon community around battery swapping and Europe expansion by NIO. And the bear case was basically, well, NIO wasted so much money in Europe and they should have known that it's more expensive and takes longer time to establish swap stations in Europe, and therefore it didn't make much sense in the first place, or they should have planned it better, or management should have known, and so on and so on. And I replied, I don't think that that is the case. I really think it is rather the opposite. They should have built more swap stations and earlier on. And I'm really not in the opinion that they made a mistake, also not by staying in the European market the way they are doing it right now. Let me explain. So first off, if you remember, I once made a video that they should have entered Switzerland instead of maybe other European countries first, because it's a central location in Europe. It's also a different tax union, by the way, and also different cultures, different languages, lots to learn from, and it's a very tiny country which they could really plaster with swap stations in a sense that it's coming closer to the density of swap station networks that you have here in China. But that's just a side case of how they could have maybe done the market entry better. But essentially I'm saying swap stations should be built first, because that's really a big USP that they are really bringing to Europe and should always bring with their brand. And it doesn't matter too much if it takes long or if it's even a little bit more expensive in Europe than it is in China, in my opinion. And the reason is, yesterday we had, or the day before already now, we had a big news in Germany that the grid almost collapsed, the electricity grid. You may know that Germany actually decided to pull out of nuclear power a few years ago, and therefore we invested more in, well, unfortunately also coal, but also in renewables. But that leaves us with an energy grid that is more vulnerable in a sense that it's more volatile and fluctuating, meaning it's not always shining, the sun is not always shining in winter, unfortunately. And it seems like 2 days ago there was the case where there was not enough load on the grid coming from renewables to cover everything on the demand side, and therefore Germany had to export lots of energy from neighboring countries who are running still nuclear power plants and stuff like that. I don't want to go more into this nuclear discussion right now. The point here is that it's highly profitable, at least on paper, to be a grid participant in Germany and in the broader sense in whole Europe currently, as we have much higher energy prices. And therefore, even if NIO's fleet is very small right now, and I've seen the numbers, there's not many sales going on in Europe, in Germany right now, and for me that's fine. Take time to build the brand, ramp up the infrastructure, get your staff schooled and educated in a way that they can pull off the same service level as we have here in China, and so on. All of that takes time. Give it the time. But in the meanwhile, one could really earn money on becoming a grid balancing actor in the energy markets. And because the energy fluctuations are so high, it's far more profitable than it's actually here in China, where, by the way, you're facing a different issue, that the grid is not as smart, or there is not a marketplace as much in place right now for trading electricity as we have it in Europe. So it's two different things, and now each of them brings its own disadvantages and advantages, and I think NIO could really exploit the advantages in Europe for now and make the battery swap station network even bigger and bigger, and the first point of entry before actually the cars are coming by either NIO and its partners in the future, which we now know the first battery swapping partnership car is being tested in winter tests now. So that's also exciting, isn't it? Now, this example of Germany just highlights how big of an issue that is. And I think battery swap stations are ultimately too small even to really bail out the entire German grid here. So that's not the real prospect, right? Germany obviously still needs to solve something in its energy infrastructure on top of that. But battery swapping could play a role in that, and we could even go as far and say, that even gives a point for making even more swap stations everywhere, because there is the potential to earn money on that, and it's really, bringing some benefits to the whole society in a sense, right? So that's what I think the market entry strategy for Europe could be for now, mainly based on the energy part of the business and the new revenue streams, learning there for NIO. Then with those learnings, they can apply them later on in China, where also the grid is evolving, and where, for example, they face the issue that in the West, they have lots of solar power, but in the East, that's where all of the demand side is. So there is, transportation issues, and also many other local issues that are very China specific. So each of these markets have their own ways of dealing with that, and battery swapping, I believe, can play a big role in that. So I'm really not saying that the European market entry at this stage should be cancelled. I think there is still ways of spinning that into something new, and it will take time, but it can be done. What do you think? Thanks for watching.